can you come up with such an iconic guitar lick like that, and then Sting just gets all the writing credit?
The song was going in the trash until I played on it, and that's all there is to it.
Sting wanted to do it in E flat. Hang on, mate. We got a problem. You can't play it in E flat.
What if the most iconic riff in pop history, the one that defines Every Breath You Take, was never properly paid for? That's exactly what guitarist Andy Summers claims, and in 2025, he's finally taking Sting to court. Along with drummer Stewart Copeland, Summers says millions in royalties were wrongly kept from him. But this lawsuit isn't just about money, it's about legacy, betrayal, and who truly owns a classic. When Every Breath You Take was first written in 1982, Sting envisioned a haunting ballad. He brought the lyrics and melody to the studio during the sessions for Synchronicity, the Police's fifth and final album. But at that stage, the song was bare, almost lifeless. It was Andy Summers who added the now legendary guitar riff, a hypnotic progression that instantly transformed the track into something unforgettable. The riff wasn't just an accessory, it became the song's heartbeat. Summers reportedly played it in a single take, cementing one of the most memorable moments in rock history. Stewart Copeland's subtle drumming gave the track its pulse, but Sting received sole writing credit. That wasn't unusual at the time. Bands often credited songs to the main lyricist. Yet in this case, Summers' contribution was undeniable. Without his riff, would Every Breath You Take even exist as we know it? The song went on to dominate charts worldwide, winning the 1984 Grammy for Song of the Year. It became one of the most played tracks in radio history, generating staggering amounts of royalties. But while Sting reaped the benefits as the credited writer, Summers and Copeland were left with performance royalties, not the songwriting share. That split has haunted their relationship ever since. And now, more than 40 years later, it's come back to the surface in a courtroom. Andy Summers has never been quiet about his feelings toward Every Breath You Take. In interviews dating back decades, he often expressed frustration about how the song's success overshadowed his creative role. In fact, Summers once described the experience as both a blessing and a curse. A blessing because the riff made him a household name. A curse because he received none of the songwriter royalties tied to it. The issue isn't only financial. Summers has said that the riff is what people instantly recognize. It's the hook, the part that listeners hum, the backbone of countless remixes, and even one of hip-hop's most famous samples thanks to Puff Daddy's 1997 smash, I'll Be Missing You. Despite all of that, Summers never received additional credit. He often pointed out how strange it felt to hear his guitar part driving one of the biggest rap songs of the decade, while his name remained absent from the credits. Over the years, he hinted that legal action might be necessary. In one striking interview, he teased fans by saying, "It's very much alive. Watch the press." That cryptic statement lingered for years, with fans wondering if Summers would ever challenge Sting. For decades, the press didn't see anything more than grumblings, but the tension never disappeared. The frustration isn't only about the past, it's about the ongoing digital era. With streaming revenue booming and billions of plays across platforms, Summers sees the same issue repeating. The riff remains central, the revenue keeps flowing, but his name is still absent from the credit line. To him, that absence represents more than money. It's a denial of authorship, and that's why in 2025, he's finally making his move. Filed in London's High Court, the lawsuit from Andy Summers and Stewart Copeland doesn't just focus on Every Breath You Take. Instead, it takes aim at Sting's entire publishing company, Magnetic Publishing, accusing it of withholding millions in royalties. The central claim is that Sting has collected the songwriter share for decades, while Summers and Copeland were reduced to what they describe as arranger's fees, a distinction that massively affects long-term earnings. The suit argues that the arrangement was never fair, particularly in today's world where digital streaming and licensing generate far more income than traditional sales ever did. Summers and Copeland are demanding a recalculation of profits, with damages believed to reach into the tens of millions of pounds. Their lawyers say these royalties should rightfully be shared, since both musicians were instrumental in shaping the band's most enduring catalog. At the heart of the filing is Every Breath You Take, a song still estimated to bring in more than £500,000 every year through airplay, streaming, and sync licensing for film and television. Summers' iconic guitar riff and Copeland's drumming are highlighted in the case as integral creative elements that never received equal recognition. The lawsuit also points out how Sting's sole credit has distorted history. Whenever the song is referenced in legal documents, industry charts, or even Grammy records, it's tied exclusively to Sting. Summers and Copeland argue that this misrepresentation has impacted not only finances, but also their artistic legacy. By challenging Sting now, decades later, they hope to finally rewrite the official narrative. If successful, this case won't just redistribute money, it could redefine how songwriting credit is evaluated when a band's collective input created a cultural phenomenon. Sting, of course, isn't backing down. His legal team has painted the lawsuit as opportunistic, insisting that Summers and Copeland already received more than fair compensation through prior agreements. They highlight a 2016 settlement between the bandmates that was designed to resolve disputes over digital royalties once and for all. To Sting's lawyers, that deal closed the book on future claims, making this new lawsuit an attempt to reopen old wounds for financial gain. Even more striking, Sting's side argues that Summers and Copeland might have actually been overpaid under older royalty structures. They point out that both musicians have earned millions in performance royalties, touring revenues, and licensing fees over the years, sums far beyond what most session players or arrangers would ever receive. In their view, the pair benefited enormously from the song's success, despite not having songwriting credit. The defense also stresses that songwriting credits are based on composition, lyrics, and melody, not performance or arrangement. Sting is adamant that he provided the framework, the words, the vocal line, and the chords. His team argues that while Summers' riff and Copeland's drumming are iconic, they don't legally qualify as authorship. To them, changing the credit now would set a dangerous precedent, unraveling settled agreements across the industry. Summers and Copeland reject this outright, saying they weren't just embellishing Sting's vision, but helping to create the track's identity from the ground up. Their case leans less on technical definitions and more on cultural truth, that the riff and rhythm are inseparable from the song's legacy. And it's this clash, legal paperwork versus artistic contribution, that makes the courtroom battle so explosive. This isn't just another music lawsuit. What's really at stake here is legacy. Every Breath You Take isn't just a hit, it's one of the most played songs in radio history, rivaling even the Beatles and Elvis in airplay metrics. Whoever gets recognized for it will shape how history remembers the Police and its members. For Sting, keeping sole credit cements his image as the singular genius behind the track. It preserves his reputation as the band's primary songwriter and protects the publishing empire he built from decades of royalties tied to his name alone. For Andy Summers and Stewart Copeland, winning this case could finally validate decades of frustration, giving them official recognition for their essential roles in crafting the band's most enduring anthem. It's not simply about money, it's about setting the record straight. If the court sides with Summers and Copeland, the decision could ripple far beyond the Police. It may set a precedent for countless other musicians who added unforgettable riffs, hooks, or rhythms but were never acknowledged in the credits. Think about all the bands where one songwriter held the paperwork while the entire group built the sound. A victory here could open the floodgates for retroactive claims across the music industry. And the timing matters. Streaming has revolutionized how royalties are earned, creating constant revenue streams that far outpace the record sales of the past. Summers and Copeland argue that failing to recognize their contributions today means erasing them from a legacy that continues to generate millions every year. In that sense, this lawsuit isn't only about reclaiming the past, it's about protecting their place in the future of music history.
The Police once stood as one of the most powerful bands of their era, but behind the scenes, tensions always simmered. The 2025 lawsuit is the latest reminder that even the greatest music can leave behind unfinished business. For Andy Summers, this case is about recognition, not just financially, but historically. For Stewart Copeland, it's about fairness in an era where streaming has put new weight on old contracts. And for Sting, it's about protecting the empire he's built from decades of royalties tied to his name alone. At the heart of it all lies one haunting question: who truly owns a song? Is it the person who writes the lyrics and melody, or the musician who invents the unforgettable riff that transforms it into a cultural landmark? Legally, the answer might come down to paperwork, but for fans, the truth feels far less simple. They hear Summers' guitar first, Copeland's pulse second, and Sting's voice tying it all together. Without all three, would the track still hold the same timeless power? Every Breath You Take will keep playing on radios, playlists, and soundtracks for decades to come. The royalties will keep rolling in year after year, proving just how enduring the song has become. But whether those royalties belong exclusively to Sting, or should finally be shared with Summers and Copeland, could redefine not just the Police's legacy, but the way future generations view authorship in music. So what do you think? Should Andy Summers and Stewart Copeland finally be recognized as co-creators of one of the biggest songs of all time? Or is Sting right to defend his claim as sole author? Drop your thoughts below. This debate is far from over.